And in order for Sri Lanka to be rescued, it needs to reduce its military spending, which stands at $1.86 billion per annum. But all of Sri Lanka's projections to emerge out of the economic crisis are predicated on the country retaining its generalised scheme of preference plus trade concessions. The annual trade concession is worth over $500 million and has boosted Sri Lanka's exports to EU member states over the years. However, Sri Lanka has failed to meet key human rights and labour requirements for receiving this preferential treatment. The EU recently issued a warning to Sri Lanka that it was set to lose its concession if it continues to ignore its obligations. And as a key stakeholder at the IMF, the UK government should propose conditionalities on any IMF financial assistance for Sri Lanka during the current economic crisis, including that Sri Lanka carries out a strategic defence and security review to reduce its military spending, remove the military from engaging in commercial activities, and that Sri Lanka should meet the requirements required for the GSP Plus scheme, and that Sri Lanka re-engages with the UNHRC process. I appreciate that the IMF does not have powers to impose such conditionalities on its own, but the UK, as a key penholder here, can add that significant influence whilst those discussions are taking place before any bailout is agreed.
One of the issues that we've consistently raised, in addition to the human rights abuses, is the levels of corruption within Sri Lanka itself. One of the ways in which we've been able to at least expose and tackle that corruption has been through the media, some elements of the excellent media that there is in Sri Lanka, but where there has been, certainly over the last 12 months, but over a longer period as well, but intensively over the last 12 months, the harassment of journalists and the closure down of the free press that there is and the free media that there is there. One of the conditions that should be attached to any form of aid that goes into Sri Lanka now, or any relationship that we have in the future, is one in which they tackle corruption, but they do that as a result of the free media, unharassed by government.
The oppressive security apparatus of the Sri Lankan state is still being used to exert control over the country's citizens. People are still being arrested and detained under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, despite the promise made by the Sri Lankan government in Resolution 30/1 7 years ago to repeal it. It is frankly astonishing that spending on the armed forces is greater today than at the height of the conflict, outstripping, as we've heard, the combined total of the health and education budgets. This must have contributed to the debt crisis in Sri Lanka. In short, the Rajapaksa regime wrecked the economy, and as yet, there seems little visible progress under its successor. So, as members have already acknowledged today, this is a situation of deep crisis in both economic and human rights terms.